I'll tell you, one step forward, two steps back always seems to be the story for OnePlus here in the United States. Some disturbing news today. Despite all the hype and anticipation, OnePlus will not be bringing a OnePlus Open 2 to the United States this year. It's not that it's being released elsewhere and we're just not going to get it. There isn't going to be a OnePlus Open 2 this year in 2025. Now, confusing for a lot of reasons. It's not like OnePlus wasn't kind of feeding the fire or fueling the fire a little bit with the leaks that were coming out. Snapdragon 8 Elite, thinnest foldable ever. All these things that we kept hearing about the OnePlus Open 2 really got us excited about the device. There were some delays. It was thought, well, it wasn't going to come out at the end of last year, but it was rumored to be the first quarter of this year. So we said, okay, you know what? Get it right. Use the new stuff. Use the Snapdragon 8 Elite. Take your time, whatever you need to do. Then Oppo started to ship, or at least seed to reviewers, the Find N5, which basically, for the most part, was going to be the Open 2, given that's the parent company of OnePlus. It's the same thing that happened with the original OnePlus Open. So it was like, okay, now we're starting to like, oh boy, now we're getting ready. There's going to be an Open 2 pretty soon. As long as it takes for OnePlus to change a few colors, install Oxygen OS, and slap some OnePlus branding and put them on the ships to get them over here, we're going to be looking at the OnePlus Open 2 pretty soon. But then the company came out and said it just wasn't to be, and it's just a trend. And don't start with me with the, well, America doesn't have to get every phone, or America's not the #1 market. They have other considerations. I understand that. I can understand that OnePlus does better in other markets. I can understand that OnePlus wants to focus on Europe and India and Asia and those different markets. I can still be disappointed as a smartphone fan that that's the case. I can understand that, but don't start with me with the, well, America doesn't need to get every phone. America doesn't get any of these phones. I don't know what you're talking about. Look around. I mean, these are a breath of fresh air when OnePlus graces us with these devices that it sends over here, but we don't have Xiaomi, we don't have Oppo, we don't have Vivo. The competition here is non-existent, and it's starting to show. You can see that with Samsung this year. There's no competition over here, and it's getting a little rough. That's why it would be nice to have a monster. OnePlus had a great release with the OnePlus 13. There's a lot of hype around it, given Samsung's relative disappointment with the Galaxy S25 series. Everybody was looking forward to the OnePlus Open 2. Coming off of this, an encore, really have Samsung on the ropes. Time to really get out there with a device that's going to wow everybody, and that would have been the rebadged Find N5, just not to be. And whether that's carrier support, whether they, I'm pretty sure it wasn't OnePlus that canceled the T-Mobile deal. Pretty sure that was T-Mobile. But it's just disappointing to me that that came at such an awkward time for OnePlus. That was the worst possible time for OnePlus to sign that contract and to get into carrier stores. There was just the OnePlus 10, OnePlus 10 Pro was just a bizarre phase for OnePlus. The pricing was off, the hardware was off, they tried to do too much, they tried to go after Samsung spec for spec, they lost who they were a little bit. So it's just disappointing that that was the result. And I'm pretty sure T-Mobile said, hey, hold on here. Enough is enough. We're not selling enough of these. We got to move this out. We got to make space for other devices that we're actually going to sell. If that were to be rerun today, if OnePlus were to go to Verizon or AT&T or back to T-Mobile and start fresh with the OnePlus 13 in carrier stores, I believe the outcome would have been significantly different than what we had previously. And that, to me, is what's just frustrating about this. It's kind of like OnePlus has 1 foot in the U.S. market and 1 foot out. We didn't get the original OnePlus Nord. To me, that was disappointing. I think that would have been an absolutely monster mid-range phone when that phone came out. We didn't get that. We had this bizarre, I finally thought that OnePlus was getting a kind of cohesive budget and mid-range phone strategy. We had the Nord N20, a device I absolutely loved. The 200 and some of those devices people liked a lot as well. Then the Nord N30 was a complete miss. They rebadged another phone. It wasn't a true successor to the Nord N20. It just didn't hit the same, and now we're just getting nothing over here in the United States once again. It's just a pattern with OnePlus, and it's just really, really bizarre. And I don't know if it's just a fundamental misunderstanding of how consumers, American consumers, buy their phones. I don't know if OnePlus honestly thinks it's going to be better with online sales. It's not going to happen. All right, it's not. It doesn't work that way. You're not going to sit there and rely on online sales when you have people, a massive consumer base who aren't enthusiasts, right? We don't get that a lot. We're watching videos on YouTube. We're reading 10 articles on a phone that we're not even going to buy when it comes out. I'm not talking to us. There's a significant, the majority of the buying public out there wants nothing to do with buying a phone online. You don't know how many people are just dumbfounded when I show them these phones I'm reviewing from overseas or even OnePlus, and they're like, well, hold on now. How do I set it up with service? What do you mean? There's something in here that I could take out and put it? They don't even know. They don't want to know. They want to walk into their carrier store every 3 years, hand them the old phone, say, set me up with the new one, and get them everything switched over, their account switched over, and their SIM card switched over, and walk out with a phone that they're not going to have to worry about for another 3 years. That's how you win, unfortunately. It's depressing. It's a realization that I've come to slowly. It's just not about being the best, and Samsung knows that, as you've seen with the Galaxy S25. So it's up to OnePlus to either... I just don't understand why, if you're going to sell phones here, if you're going to have these phones, why you wouldn't give it your best effort. And I don't think it's really taking away resources from India and Asia to come over here and make a deal with carrier stores. What would it possibly be? What is the certification for voice over LTE on AT&T or Verizon? What would it cost them to play on their networks? Is it that Samsung and Apple and Google are just doing so much business and saying, you know what, don't let them in. Don't let them in. This is our garden. This is our little playground. Don't let OnePlus in. Whatever it happens to be, whether it's on the OnePlus side, just not understanding how the American marketplace works, which I find very hard to believe, or it's on the carrier side where Samsung and Google and Apple put enough pressure on carriers to say, hold on, don't let OnePlus in. Don't let anybody else in. This is we don't want to have competition in these stores. Something's got to give. There has to be some resolution here. There has to be a way to get these phones here and to have them work on the networks and to give American consumers some choice. And that's why the OnePlus Open 2 hits so hard and is so disappointing, because this was the phone that was pushing Samsung on the Fold 7. This was the phone that was going to say, well, you know what? Wow, we got a really thin device. This is still the most advanced foldable you could buy in the United States, and it's almost 2 years old. Thin, light, everyone crows about the anti-reflective layer. That's what we had here. Anti-reflective layer, nice to see outside. It got rid, alleviate a lot of the smudging and all the rest of it that you can have on these displays to make them less viewable outdoors. Nice camera hump on a foldable, really nice zoom and everything. You got a little periscope zoom going on here. There was a lot of technology packed into this. It was very thin, it was light, it was excellent. Open canvas as well. Software multitasking, brilliant across the board. And then we are going to lose out on that this year and leave an open field once again for Samsung. Samsung loves it. They're sitting there like, yes, please. Less competition once again. We don't have to worry about anybody else. We'll just say, well, this is a great upgrade from your Z Fold 3. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what the secret sauce is here. I don't know what the solution is here, but it's really somebody that has the nerve to go through the loopholes. And you want to talk about all this other nonsense about stuff and with the fees and stuff, that's fine. There's got to be somebody willing to do it. And the first person through the door that's willing to go through the regulations, that's willing to go through the loopholes, and willing to pay the certification fees for the carriers or whatever the barrier to entry happens to be, the first person to do that is going to be a winner. And Samsung and all the rest of them, they're going to start sweating. They're going to do everything they can to keep that from happening. But it's got to happen. Competition is important. The free market has to win out. The fact that I'm having this argument in America is a little concerning. The fact that other markets overseas are freer than ours should be unacceptable to us. But that's what we're left with. These giant conglomerates, whether it's Verizon, whether it's AT&T, or T-Mobile, who decide who gets to play and who doesn't. And yes, you could order stuff from overseas and you can put in your T-Mobile SIM, who's better than most at allowing these devices on their network, and you can import devices, but you can't walk in to the carrier store when something goes wrong. It says, excuse me, Mr. Sales Representative, this phone isn't working. Can you help me? Don't underestimate how important that is. Don't underestimate how secure it makes people feel and the peace of mind it makes people feel to be able to go into their carrier store, sit down with the person that usually doesn't know very much, and get themselves a phone that's working, they'll walk out with, and then not worry about it again. Don't assume, because we're enthusiasts, that everybody knows and is comfortable with the things that we're comfortable with. And that's not going to change here in the United States, and it's just very, very disappointing that that's what we have to deal with. To me, that's a mistake. Who the mistake is on, I don't know. All I know is what we're left with. And what I'm left with in February of 2025 is knowing that I'm not getting a OnePlus Open 2 this year. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.